brings his new wife home tomorrow, are you? She's a red-cheeked, tisty-tosty little body enough.
Yes, well, it's probably just marks from something you did to yourself during the day without noticing. Have some cake.
That's the work of the enemy.
Who?
Why didn't you marry her? Why did you bother choosing me then?
With your arm, you must touch the neck of a newly hanged man before he's gone cold.
The Withered Arm is possibly Hardy's best-known short story. It's been reprinted in anthologies as diverse as the Gothic and folklore, and it remains a firm favourite. It was also a favourite of Hardy's own. The story, taken from an overheard conversation between his mother and his grandmother. It contains folklore, it contains the Gothic, but it also contains a salient message about what was expected of each gender, especially if they were married or not.
The plot of The Withered Arm centres mainly around a woman called Rhoda who had a dalliance with a farmer called Farmer Lodge a few years ago, which resulted in a son. As with all of these stories, the farmer did not marry Rhoda and just sort of left her to fend for herself, and what he did instead was, a few years later, bring home a significantly younger wife, which pisses off Rhoda to no end. Rhoda accidentally, due to an unfortunate dream, curses this poor new wife to have a withered arm. Hence the title of the story. Wow. Of course, because the new wife now has a withered arm, Farmer Lodge doesn't actually want to go near her, so the poor girl starts trying to find solutions to this withered arm. So she ends up talking to Rhoda, and she begins to realise that Rhoda in fact has a son by the farmer and he didn't marry her. And the poor girl slowly starts going mad trying to fix her withered arm. Ghosts, ghouls, and magical men and corpses are involved. The witch doctor's solution to the girl's getting her arm fixed is not anyone's idea of a good time, and in the end it results with the poor girl dying of shock and stress and all that. You'll recognise quite a few familiar faces. Obviously John's a repeat. Rhoda and her daughter are new. Gertrude is her daughter, actually. Neil is Farmer Lodge. We had a bit of fun casting this one because, you see, we wanted the farmer's wife to be clearly married for her youth and her good looks, so we couldn't cast a young woman who looked older, because if she looked, 25, early 30s, and Farmer Lodge looked 40s, it wouldn't be so obvious. So what we had instead is we had Izzy, who is in fact, I think she's 16, 17, but she looks a little bit older. She looks, late teens, early 20s. So we had her as Gertrude, so that the age difference between Farmer Lodge and his wife was, like, really marked. Because Rhoda and Farmer Lodge look roughly the same age, so it would make sense if them two got married. But we really wanted to insert the fact that Farmer Lodge basically brought almost a child back to be his wife, to add insults to injury to poor Rhoda, being like, oh hey, you're old. We had great fun with Miles, who played the part of Rhoda's son. He had to pretend to be incredibly sulky and then dead. I do wish just to point out, these are my favourite photographs of him being dead. My favourite photographs of him being dead. They're brilliant. Thank you so much to Know the Fort, by the way, for lending us your little wheelbarrow.
Hi, I'm Caroline, and I played the character of Rhoda. So what type of person was she? So I don't think Rhoda Brooke is neither an entirely negative or positive character. I think she's portrayed rather sympathetically as the jilted woman. So Farmer Lodge has fathered a child but refused to marry her, and she has become a thin, worn milkmaid who supports herself and her son with arduous labour. She also has her flaws. Her curiosity about Gertrude, Farmer Lodge's new wife, amounts practically to obsession. And it's not all dark. I think there's something comic about Rhoda's sort of wanting to know every single thing about Gertrude, while simultaneously asserting that she wouldn't care enough even to look at her. So, I took inspiration from certain people I knew for that character. So I think hers is a deeply human portrait, actually. Her anger and obsession with a rival are at once quite understandable, pathetic, reproachable. And I think she's quite a complex character as well, because you can see her both as a sympathetic and a blameworthy figure. As I said, she's rather complex. She's made up of many layers. So I enjoyed reading up about that and researching and trying to work her out. So although she's been dealt a poor hand in life, she's still got that fire and rebellion and passion. So yeah, it was just a really good challenge. I think the challenge actually with portraying this character is she's such a different character from me. So I had to do quite a lot of character analysis and use techniques when preparing for this role, and was playing her as well. So, you know, I was working on physicality, reactions, gestures. So trying to embody this person fully, showing this hard life, how it's taken its toll.
In the original story, most of the story occurs over at least, I think it's 10 years. Like, the story stretches a very long while. So, for example, as soon as Gertrude gets her withered arm, she actually runs away and leaves. Rhoda also leaves. Like, they all leave and come back and move around, and it's very much the girls sort of slow insanity and fall from grace goes on for quite a while. So unfortunately, like season 8 Game of Thrones, I couldn't figure out how to adequately explain the passage of time of like 10 years in a short story of only 20 minutes. So like Game of Thrones season 8, we shrunk down 10 years into a 20-minute short. So we basically shrunk the whole thing down into a few weeks so that, you know, it starts with the girl being brought home. Rhoda curses her only accidentally. You know, our adaptation is significantly more fast-paced. Secondarily, the famous hag riding scene. Traditionally in nightmares, usually what you'd have is you'd have a demon that came and sat on your chest, which prevented you from breathing. Now, whenever you look at paintings of these, it's a creepy little homunculus dude that sits on your chest of some suffering woman you see. Now, the problem is that we needed Gertrude to be the demon, and the problem is that Gertrude is, you know, roughly the same size as Rhoda, well, height-wise, so you couldn't really put Gertrude and sit her on Rhoda without it looking really wrong for modern audiences, or without us having to do rather extensive CGI. So what we did instead is, instead of having her sitting on her chest like in the movie, we have her taunting Rhoda with the ring that Rhoda never got, so that it sort of made more sense that the demon took Gertrude's form, was like, look at the ring that I have that you don't, and that's what freaks Rhoda out, as opposed to having like a demon literally sitting on her chest. For the locations and filming, we of course shot quite a few of the indoor scenes on, you know, the RMT as usual, because it means you get to get them bang out the way, it's easy, and I get the Caravaggio aesthetic, which I frankly adore. We also managed to somehow get our sticky little fingers on Higher Bockhampton, which is Thomas Hardy's childhood home, as a cottage for Trendle, and also for some bits of filming for Rhoda's cottage, because we needed like shots out of windows of gardens and things that you just couldn't fake on stage. And then, shock of all, I decided to drop by Know the Fort in central Weymouth. As a large... I don't actually know the era. Interested in lending us a room, would you, for like an hour or so? And amazingly, they said yes. They gave us a little tour, sort of saying, you could have this room, you could try this room, and they showed us these amazing cellars, those sort of storage cellars, and I really wanted to film in them, but they had stone floors, and they were like an arched stone roof, so the echo was unimaginable. I mean, if you just shove a choir in there, it would sound amazing, but you try and record any kind of dialogue, So in the end, we used a corner of one of their gun decks. So, as you can probably tell here, it's basically the corner of a room, but we needed a big, heavy-set, dark room for the morgue, because obviously it's, you know, it's a legal building, you wouldn't just sort of do it in a shack. So we did it at the corner of that room, and I think it turned out really nice. I didn't do this, I should have done this, but I should have shown you the reverse, because on the behind of us you can see these vast cannons. And I mean, I've seen cannons because I'm interested in history. I have never seen a cannon. It's bigger than a car. It's bigger, it's about the size of, I don't know, a 4-wheel drive ute. Like, if those things went off, you'd be instantly deaf. They had like, I don't know, 4 of them in a row, these cannons that were bigger than trucks. Now, anyways, unrelated non sequitur.